Welcome to the Global Platonic Love Affair. Now, what do I mean by platonic? Well, this love affair has nothing to do with sex and it has nothing to do with romance. And it is indeed a global love affair. And I want to tell you a little bit about it. It's basically a grassroots movement. It involves millions of people all over the world, all different spiritual beliefs, different philosophies. Some are more science-based, some are based in historical spiritual practices. It doesn't matter, but this movement is going on all over the earth and it involves millions of people. So I know a lot of you might be upset by what you're hearing on social media and mainstream media, and it's just bad news after bad news after bad news. But what we're here to tell you is that there's also a sort of a parallel reality that we're constructing and creating and living in that is something so amazing, you may not even really be aware of it. It goes by many different names. You'll see all kinds of spiritual teachers talking about it in different ways. And my friends that are here with me today, we're going to talk about it and how it's affected our life and what it's doing for us and give you some hope and give you something real that you can be investing your time and your energy and your consciousness on, and really help make a difference in your own life, but also for the lives of everybody. And that's what we want. So before I guess we're going to introduce ourselves today, and I thought I would start. My name is Karen Holton. I offer a free online course. It's called Quantum Health Transformation. It's over 20 videos to help you to open up your mind and think differently. It will help you to detoxify from the construct, and also it will help you to build the kind of life that you want for yourself. And you can find this information on my YouTube channel at Karen Holton TV or my Odyssey channel at Karen Holton TV. And I also have a website, www.karenholtonhealthcoach.com. So I thought I would turn it over to you, Trevor.
Right, that's impressive. Well, my name is Trevor Eilsny. I'm a spiritual director of Beamism. I'm the creator of Beamism, which is all about healing, and it's about leading people from the darkness into the light of who they are. So if anyone is going through what we call the dark night of the soul, which can look like depression, feeling lost and confused, I've been in that place, and I put a code together that sort of awakens people to understand that the meaning of life is in 3 letters, 2 words, which is called Be Me. So I actually bring to the planet that we're not human beings, but we are, in actual fact, Be Me beings. And Be Me beings is all about being the basic structure with a consciousness that is going to lead people into being their true self. So that's what I bring. Find the true self, feel the true self, and be the true self. But the question remains, what is the true self? So hopefully we'll be speaking about that today. I do have a YouTube channel. I do one-to-one meetings on Skype. If anyone wants to come through to me, we'll leave the email at the end of these videos so that you can come through. And that's what I do. I do psychic, medium, clairvoyant, clairaudient work. That's how it all first started for me. And I was on many, many TV shows. But amongst all the identities, I just like to be me, really. And it doesn't have an identity. So that's my story, briefly.
Wonderful. Yes, and the links will be in the description below this video. Lorilei, what have you got to say for yourself today?
Well, thank you so much for having me, Karen, and such a pleasure to meet you, Trevor. My name is Lorilei Potvin. I'm a Canadian clairvoyant medium. I'm a crystal Reiki energy healer, Akashic Records practitioner, spiritual teacher, and mentor. I consider myself to be a humanitarian activism, as well as a podcaster and a registered nurse. So believe it or not, how I got my start in spirituality, had many unusual experiences working as a nurse, and I always say I've been so deeply grateful to be blessed to be at the beginning of life hundreds of times working in the NICU with neonates. And then when I transitioned out into the community, I feel so deeply honored to have families have asked me to be part of the transition for their loved one as they leave this earth, and as I call it, going back home. I've studied near-death experiences professionally as well as personally for 40 years. And I believe I had one as a toddler myself. I also do quite a bit of mentoring. I do it in group settings as well as individually. I have 2 groups on Facebook, Paranormal University for all things paranormal, and I'm going to explain that in a second. And I have the Angel Rocker Tribe, where we talk about how to access your intuitive gifts. What are chakras? That we all have these gifts, the power of the mind. Part of my message is that as human beings, we are incredibly powerful. We are capable of so much that we've always been told isn't possible. We're capable of that and so much more. And actually, what really woke myself was through crazy paranormal experiences. In my last home that I lived in for 11 years, we actually shared our story on international TV on the series Paranormal Survivor, and it was called Demonic Hauntings. And believe it or not, something of that nature appeared to me one night many years ago. And here we are today. I always say I look back on that experience, not with anger, not with any negativity whatsoever. I wouldn't wish it on a blade of grass, I say. But it's led me to where I am today, connecting with wonderful people like yourself and Trevor. So thank you for having me. I should mention one other thing quickly. My podcast, The Angel Rock, is on United Public Radio Network live on Monday nights. I have people from all walks of life, either through professionally or extracurricularly, that they're making a positive change for humanity. And that is broadcast out of New Orleans, Louisiana. And thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure.
Impressive.
So this global love affair, I've noticed it. Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about it. He doesn't call it that. Greg Braden, I think it's Dr. Bruce Lipton. They have been talking about how we can actually heal ourselves and heal our world by basically slipping into the love harmonic, learning how to escape the dark night of the soul, which Trevor's an expert at, but also just that this thing is happening, and it's like a parallel reality that's happening all over the world. I know people in India who are of different religions who are all experiencing the same thing. And the amazing thing about it is it just brings so much peace and joy, and of course love into our lives. And we have each other, and we have each other's backs no matter what happens. But Trevor, how do you see this global platonic love affair unfolding? What does that mean from your perspective, as far as what you teach, what you know, and just feel free to share anything you want, however spirit moves you, because this is not, all 3 of us don't necessarily have to have the same perspective. It's all good, right?
It's all good. It's all about being authentic. That's the answer, isn't it? And that's the one thing that we are, really. And that's why the human title has to disappear. But when we go back, probably for all of us, including people like Bruce Lipton and Greg Braden and things like that, if we go back 30 years when none of this really kind of existed. So when I was going through the journey, there was no information. So it was very difficult for me to understand what was happening. And of course, that sends you into the dark night of the soul. And of course, the dark night of the soul is the furthest point away from what love is. And so I never really truly understood what love is. And looking at it on a human level, I think that word is definitely gone a little bit AWOL, I think, because the love of the human has got connotations. It's got conditions attached to it, and so therefore it doesn't really last that long. But come forward 30 years, where all of a sudden this amazing awakening has happened. You have to ask one question: why? How? How did it happen? Who sent the call in, and why did we feel it? And so therefore, over the time, even though it feels like that we've not done much, whilst we was doing it by ourselves and felt very much alone with it, when we look at it now, yes, now there is a global movement. So when Beamism was being created and the healing of Emberkey, I basically found that there is a map and there is a code, and I bring that code to the planet. So when the human side of me disappeared, that's what revealed my true self. And I see what's going on in this planet is very dark. People with this darkness. Now, many years ago from Spirit, I was told that Armageddon was coming, and I couldn't even spell it. What about talk about what Armageddon means? And I didn't quite understand it. And as the process has gone on, I went through many different processes. Was it about being a psychic? Was it about dealing with relationships? Was it the power of the mind? Was it healing my emotions? How do I get to love who I am without asking somebody to love me? So I used to think that love was very difficult, and it was very difficult to understand. And I also believe as well that the more the awakened one does awaken, they find it very difficult to actually find a partner that's going to actually complement what love you're talking about. So for me now, I look at the world since the virus and the way the war is going, and God knows what's coming next. Now we're starting to see why we were prepared. And this is the difference. We've all been prepared. And we're at the place now where people didn't need us. People thought we were crazy. We were idiots. You know, what you're talking about, love and light and healing and awakening. You know, I had all of that going through this process. But there's something that I believed in. But when the pandemic struck, I knew then that all of my 25, 28 years of preparing, because at that time, wasn't really quite sure what it was for. So now, as the game is being played, now I start to see Armageddon being played out. And what you've got going on here is the people that are dark, and I've been in that dark place, and there is spirit connected to that, whether it be their own spirit or there's a spirit from the spirit that is connecting to that, even dynamic, as what was said earlier on. We've got a place now where we are using our consciousness to be able to put that into the field, because we understand the field of consciousness now. And so therefore, we receive that information and we put that information back out into the field so that other people can hear and hear that calling. So we're here to make the calling, really, because the darkness is trying to take over everything. And I'm so pleased that you don't have to be a Bruce Lipton, you don't have to be a Greg Braden that's got all of this background and knowledge of where they come from. I mean, I'm just Mr. Normal, really. I'm just a hairdresser that I dealt with fashion all my life. But what I love to see it can be anyone now. It can be the butcher, it can be the car mechanic, it can be the hairdresser, it can be absolutely anyone. And that's what I love, because all souls are now starting to awaken. And for me, you know, soul means sign of universal love, symbol of universal language. And that's the one thing that we need to speak about. It is a language. And the darkness are using an old-fashioned, what I call an old-fashioned language, because what it's trying to do, it's trying to control humanity, and humanity is not having it anymore. So there is a platonic love that's going on here, but I'd like to take it a little bit further than that, because for me, love just basically means naturalness. And the reason why I say it's just naturalness is because that's the very thing everyone's lost. So when people, you know, when you look at people, what are they looking for? Well, they don't like who they are. They don't like what they've become. They don't like the way that their mind speaks to them. And they don't like the way that they feel about themselves the majority of the time. So trying to understand what love is, that's where the beanie comes in, which is the body, the mind, and the energy. That's the Trinity. When the Trinity becomes the one, I become the authentic one. So I become my best friend, best mate ever, be me. Everything's a be me with me. And so I become my best friend. And in that, that's when I discovered the gifts of healing. And I know we've all spoken about healing, but when people do truly awaken from that human programming, which is complete entrapment, and so therefore the human in me broke down, and there it revealed these incredible gifts. And these incredible gifts sounded mad, crazy, insane, you know, but now when I look at it, it's natural. Every part of it is natural. So if I need to do a healing, it's just like me making a cup of tea. It's so naturally given. It so naturally happens, because that's the one thing that's always been missing from this planet is the healers. And if you go right back into the witch days, you know, when we was burning women as witches, you know, what was they burning? They was burning healers. And so therefore, what woman also I feel has missed is its natural birthright to be the natural born healer. My God, you know, the woman creates life. It brings in life onto the planet. And so therefore, that's what I feel is coming back. And it's not a crazy notion anymore. It's absolutely needed. And so therefore, Armageddon is between the dark and the light souls. What is the difference? The darkened souls have the knowledge, but they're not sharing it. They're using it against us. Where you got people on this global awakening, every piece of information that we get or that we bring onto the planet, we're sharing it. And that is a difference for me between a dark soul and a light soul. One shares, one hides. And so therefore what's going on is truth and illusion. And I think there's many people out there that have had enough of being a human being, but where do I go from here? What's the next option? And of course, it's all about spirituality. But then I discovered that there's also another option, and that was just about being me. I want to understand me. I want to know who I am. I want to know how I can heal myself. I want to know how to change my level of consciousness. I want to know how to awaken my eyesight. So for me now, a guy that didn't come from love, wow, I truly love, you know, and I spent a long time thinking, oh, please get me off this shithole. I've had enough. But now I don't want to leave this place because we've got so much work to do. And each and every being is bringing something new to the planet that kind of didn't exist before. And it's fantastic. All these people have got these wonderful ideas of these, whether it's about the ascension or whether it's about the awakening or whether it's about the quickening or whether it's about healing. And I think it's wonderful. I think it's beautiful. And if we can teach that, and if we can learn that, then we can pass that on also to our siblings in the future, because they're going to be entrapped even more. And I think we're here to stop it.
Well said. Very well said. Thank you, Trevor. Wow. Now, before we get into a bit of discussion, Lorilei, would you like to weigh in on this?
Sure, that was beautifully said, Trevor. And I was taking notes because my mind works so quickly, and I'll try and remember all this after everything you said. So I couldn't agree with you more. And when it comes to those that are awakened, or we hear this new buzzword, the light worker, we're finding each other. Met many who connect with spirit, myself included, that we were told this would be happening in the next 4 to 5 years before all that's been going on right now. And it seems we just naturally are finding people who are on the same vibrational energy wave, if you will, or wavelength for those that maybe don't use that terminology. I think that what this is all about, this is just my analogy and what I get from spirit, though, I think this is all about discovering as well who we are. And again, I agree with you, many of the things that you said, but we are eternal beings, just having a human experience in this lifetime. But what I think it's all about is service to others. And when I say service to others, I think that this is where the dark is coming from. It's about materialism, and it's about all these things that really don't matter. And I think the big life lessons for me when I learned that was working with terminally ill patients. And I worked with people that were very well off, people that came from the poorest of the poor. Nobody ever that I ran into said, I didn't make enough money. I didn't get the latest car. I didn't get the latest mansion. It was all, I wish I had told the people around me how much they meant to me every single day, how much I love them, how much, all the things that are so important in life. And it's really almost a gift to have that time to look back. But the regrets were, I wish I hadn't waited, or I wish I hadn't waited till I retired to follow my dreams. I wish. It's about living in the now, about if you're feeling this, find out about it. There's so much information out there, connect with other people. Or if you're feeling this strong calling that maybe you need to go wherever, investigate it a little bit, but follow your heart rather than waiting. Well, I'll wait until I retire, or I'll wait till I lose those 30 pounds, or I'll wait till whatever. It is about discovering the inner who you are, falling in love with yourself, the good and the bad. But the one place I'm going to disagree a little bit with you about with love is I think that we're given these human relationships when it comes to love, because we meet a lot of people that are very difficult to love. We do. But I think where it comes in the big picture is it teaches us about unconditional love. And that I'm still working at it. I'm not a master at it. I'll be working on this till the day I die. But I think it starts to get us to realize as human beings that, this person may be difficult to love for whatever reason, but I also believe spirit sends us messages through other people. And again, I'm not telling somebody how to look at this, but for myself, when I meet somebody that rubs me the wrong way, or they just push all my buttons, and I just feel like tearing my hair apart, or out, I should say, I realize when I walk away, take a couple breaths and think about it, they're usually mirroring something maybe I don't need, like in myself, maybe that needs some healing or whatever it may be. So I agree with you about the spiritual sense, about learning how to love oneself. But I also believe that we're given these imperfect human relationships with love to learn about, because each experience is an experience to learn from, right? When the relationship doesn't work out, one of the big things that always comes through from spirit, say when I'm doing a reading, is think about what made you fall in love with that person. What do you take away from that relationship that maybe worked but didn't work? How can you learn from this? How can you grow? How can you move forward from this? Now, a lot of people don't. They just keep repeating the same mistake over and over and over. And I could be wrong. I could be all wrong about this. But to me, I think that that's why we're given these relationships is to learn about unconditional love. The other things I wanted to mention was when you were talking about Armageddon. I have been saying this all year round. I know Karen's been hearing me say this a lot, even personally. I really believe the year 2022 is about the apocalypse. And when I say apocalypse, I mean with the fact that when we look at part of the meaning of that word is it's meant to reveal which was once hidden. And I really believe we're seeing, and I'm noticing the more attention I'm paying to this, the more I'm seeing it. So when people are awakening, when they're discovering truth, whatever they're discovering, it's like pulling that cork out of the bottle and letting the genie out. And once you wake up and you see the truth, you can't stuff the genie back in the bottle and put the cork back on. So it's the death of an old way of thinking, an old way of living, an old way of being, if you will, and moving forward. And with that being said, and I want to preface it with this, is that I always say it's not my job to judge. Again, I'm not always perfect at it, but I do try to remember that. But I think it's almost about the analogy of the wolf in sheep's clothing, that the more and more, whether it's a situation or even a person, that it's almost like they're unzipping that sheep's clothing and we're seeing what's underneath. Is it a wolf? Is it a monster? Because sometimes we've been seeing some pretty monstrous things. Or is it that beautiful, beautiful light and soul? And I think that that's part about who we're discovering, how we're finding one another, is because when you look at light, say you've got a room that's completely pitch black, you've got one match and you strike it. It is incredible the amount of light from one tiny little match that will spread in this big room of darkness. And that's why I think it's so important for, and again, I don't know, I'm not big on labels and titles, but it seems to be the buzzword, light worker, if you will, is those that have already gone along that journey. Like you said, when you've had the dark night of the soul, I was nodding when you said it. We all know what it means when you've gone through it. And when you go through that and then you start to awaken and you educate yourself, and there's a lot of persecution, especially back in the past when we were kind of the weird ones, or you didn't want to let people know about what you knew or what you believed or what had you. But now it's almost like a beacon. That's the way spirit shows me. From the other side, everything looks like little pinpricks of light. But those that are working in the fields that we are, it's like those old flashing hotel motel signs if you're driving along a highway and it's flashing in the dark. That's what people are seeing, and people are gravitating to these places because the people I'm meeting, and I'm sure we all are, they're awakening, and the first thing they're saying is, oh my God, my whole life's been a lie. Like, why am I here? I feel stuck. Like, what's the point? And then, like you said, there's so much work to be done. Now, of course, we can never, ever force this on others. And this is something I mean, in the beginning, when I woke up, I wanted it all right in the beginning, right? But it's like being a newborn almost, right? You're laying there and you slowly start to evolve and strengthen your gifts and realize what your gifts and talents are. You can't just go from, say, being born to running, right? It takes a little bit of time to build on that. And I think that's another reason why teaching is such an important part, but we can't force this on people. Not that you were saying that or anybody is, but I'm finding people newly awakened. They want it all. I wanted it all too in the beginning too, right? Till I learned that it was an evolution, if you will. And we learn from one another. And I think that that's why we are finding different people that are on the same path, regardless of what the name is. Like you said, I think it's so important that you pointed this out. You don't need to be a Greg Braden or a Joe Dispenza or whomever. It's a beautiful thing that they're doing, and they're helping a lot of people. But that's another thing I hear from people is, what can I do? What can I do? I'm just one person. You can do a lot. Same as healing. And everything you've said, I've agreed with you. I have to agree with you about. And healing can come in so many forms. Maybe you're a musician. Maybe you make beautiful music. That can heal one of the senses, many of the senses. Artwork. Working with elderly people or with children or whomever it may be, but using the gifts that we have to be able to give service to others, to help others, to come from a place of love. But it's very important also to remember, and I think we forget this as working in this field, whatever title we want to give ourselves, is we also have to nurture ourselves. We can't you can't keep giving from an empty cup, pouring from an empty cup. So it's many times, myself included, we need to be reminded that we need to take care of ourselves so that we can help others. And I think that that's what this is all about, is spreading the message of love, because the dark ones, if you will, there is a lot of dark energy. All they have is fear. Fear, and like you said, trying to force people. Humanity is waking up and they're not having it anymore. Whatever it may be, they're not having it anymore, but where do they go from here? But I think when we come from a place of love, when we find, if you will, your tribe or your group of people or whomever this is, and it's almost like we're building a separate community. And that may very well be what may need to happen. But I do believe the world is going to get red pilled, if you will, or woken up one day, whether they want to or not. I think it's all going to be in people's faces. So they're going to need people to be able to stand back, I think, and support them, to get from a place of love, rather than saying, I told you so, or I tried to tell you. Nobody needs to hear that, right? The last thing I want to leave people with right now is what we perceive becomes what we believe, and it becomes our reality. And what I mean by that is, so many things we've been told aren't possible. I'm going to use an example with myself. I developed a cavity behind this right tooth here. No, teeth don't regenerate, right? Now, guess what, folks? It's almost healed. So I'm telling you right there, that's just an example with myself. Nothing is impossible. If we can believe it, and sometimes you got to fake it till you make it. I believe meditation works, even just telling yourself over and over. There are people out there, there's many things in nature that can heal us. So don't ever believe when you've been told that something isn't possible, because believe me, it is. And I'll leave it with that, Karen.
Wow, that's great, Lorilei. Thank you. And that kind of goes back to what Trevor was saying about how the healers of this world were eliminated. So that was the women, that was the indigenous populations, all the different groups of people who had their own ways of healing. Then that was all covered up and destroyed. And then this, whatever this is, this Frankenstein of a medical industry we face today, that's just my personal opinion, is flourishing because it's harder and harder to find the nutraceuticals and the different ways that we can, and just the fact that we can heal ourselves. I want to tell you a little bit, I want to touch back, both of you talked about this, and that was self-love. And I really believe self-love is the key. It really is the key. And I'm going to tell you what happened to me. I had a lot of problems in my life, and I didn't take very good care of myself. And people told me, and I told myself, well, my problem was that I was overweight. I was 320 pounds most of my adult life. If you just lost weight, you wouldn't have these problems. If you just lost weight, you get a better husband. If you just lost weight, you'd get the better job. It was all about the losing weight. Well, then I've actually had a couple of spiritual awakenings because they came at different times for different purposes. But I had a huge, huge spiritual awakening, and suddenly I couldn't eat. So Source or my higher self created whatever. The doctors couldn't find anything wrong where I couldn't eat. And I lost a terrific amount of weight. I actually got down to the point where I was slightly underweight. And I thought my life would magically become perfect. And then what I found out was, no, I got myself into that. I had to get myself out of it. So for me, what I had to learn about self-love in the beginning was very, very basic. I had to learn what is actual food and what are food-like substances. And I had to get myself, I had to deal with addictions, and I had all kinds of addictions. I mean, addictions is not just about drugs and alcohol. It can be about sugar. It can be about bad relationships. It can be about all kinds of things. And I had to strip off my addictions. But the big one for me was food, because I was eating what I thought was food, but it wasn't food. And I had to take the responsibility to learn how to feed and nurture my body. I had to learn how to feed and nurture my mind. And I had to allow myself that space to hear my higher self. Because one of the other addictions I had was to keep myself running at 1,000 miles an hour, so that I didn't have any time to have the peace and the time to just sit and feel what it was like being inside my skin, inside my body. The mind was taken over by, for lack of a better term, some kind of like a computer virus. And so it wasn't until I was able to hit bottom to the point where I was emptied out. And there we go again with the dark night of the soul, where life became so unbearably painful for me that I had to go, okay, I surrender. And I had to surrender to this force that was much greater than me and certainly a lot wiser and knew everything I needed, everything I need. I know how to accomplish it because now I'm listening. And so I just want to really, for the viewers, I know Lorilei and Trevor, you know all this, but for the viewers who may be struggling in these difficult times, these confusing times, it really comes back to self-love, learning how to care for our bodies, learning how to care for our minds, and learning how to care for our spiritual selves. And I'm wondering if I could just toss this back over to you, Trevor, and let you fill in from your perspective more about this self-love.
Well, as I said, not truly understanding that word, but love for me means living one vibrational energy. If it's LOVE, living one vibrational energy. And then when you couple that with Be Me, live one vibrational energy, body, mind, experience, that's where I started to understand that in this experience that I was going through. So when we talk about unconditional love, what I've learned is just truly incredible. So let me bring you into what I would say is unconditional, because I'm a man, right? I've been told to, control everything, be the master of everything, and you do what I say, and all of these things. And if you don't get it, there's an argument, and all of these things. So I hated being a man in that sense of it. I hate how I was told to be a man, and my upbringing was, you use these all the time to get things done. But as the progression went on, this is the interesting thing, because when you see relationship is the key word. It is the greatest word, and it's a word that is not 100% truly understood. I've got a relationship with my body, I've got a relationship with my mind, I've got a relationship with my experience, my energy, I've got a relationship with the world, I've got a relationship with a girlfriend, I've got a relationship with my mom, and the list goes on. So relationship, trying to understand what that is. The Be Me is the relationship. That's the relationship that I was seeking. That was the love that I was trying to understand. Now, when it came down to actually a relationship turning up, I've never chosen a relationship in my life. I have no, she must be dark, or she must be blonde, or she must be 5'3", or whatever it is. And I've worked with some of the most amazing, beautiful women across the world. And whoever shows up for me is enough for me. And I'll tell you for why. Because that person has been given to me. That wasn't because I asked for that relationship to come into my life. That is a triangle from something that I've put up there to somebody that I'm going to meet. And you're right. When we put out into the universe, or we put out into the spirit, or God, whatever you want to call it, a relationship comes into play and delivers the answer. So I'm a man, you're a woman. Man meets woman, woman meets man. We kind of call that a relationship. But I found out something that is absolutely blown my mind. And the reason why I've stayed away from the YouTubes for the last 9 months is because I awakened again and again and again and again. And what happened is, the person that I'm living with in this house, who we just met, was it by coincidence? Was it because I needed a relationship? Was it because I needed love? No. This person is a person that I would say was heaven sent, and I was meant to meet. And I'll tell you for why. Because what happened is, at that moment, I thought, I'm a man, she's a woman, we do man and woman things, you know, but then it started to show something else. And here's the thing. This ain't nothing to do with man and woman, because I'll argue the facts that says, am I a man? Prove it to me. Am I a man? Prove it to me you're a woman. Prove it to me you're a human being. But here's the thing I discovered. This person that I'm in this area that I'm in is called New Hampshire. It's called Hampshire. Now, I come from London. I've never really heard of Hampshire at all. I'll try and keep this as brief as I possibly can because it's just phenomenal. And so I live near Portsmouth, which means that's where the boats used to leave. And, you know, it's a big shipping area and things like that. Once you start to awaken more, you get the information, as, you know, we said earlier on. It just so happened that her family and my family was married 400 years ago and 500 years ago. And from this place of Hampshire, we both boarded, her family and my family, boarded a boat that set sail, and we created New Hampshire, right? And I found the passenger boat list, right, from 1600 and whatever it was. And her family's sitting on the boat, my family's sitting on the boat. So is this just a girlfriend or a relationship? Is this just a person that I've met out of the blue? Oh, hell no. There's a whole new story. So coming back here, my whole entire family from the 1500s are buried not 6 feet away from me. Now, I've realized that these people that I thought my family was useless, I thought they was idiots. They must be, because look where we are now. I used to say to myself, oh, no. I come from an incredible lineage. So for me, the awakening was, what is your lineage? And so therefore, my lineage takes me right back to King Edward III. So I come from royalty. And so therefore, as I awakened and I came out of that, even the spiritual connotation of what's going on, properly on the soul's level, I am the soul of all souls, right? And so therefore, all of these people that I was meeting, even in my dreams, even in my visions, whether I was awake or asleep, when this information started to come through and I started to find books on my family, because they're incredible people. And you find yourself in these places where I used to go to a church. I don't know why I went to the church. I just felt like going to the church. I'm not religious or anything. But I used to go to a church and I used to sit and I think, I don't even know why I'm sitting here. And then 25 years later, I find out that one of my ancestors was the Archbishop of that church. And there was another church that I went and used to sit in, just felt comfortable, don't know why, just used to go there. Found out one of my other ancestors was the Archbishop of that one as well. So we created in England the Catholic nation, and it still exists today. And then I found out that we owned all the land. And I had to do a seminar. I'd come from Spain. Somebody saw me in a seminar. They asked me to go and do a seminar for them. And I was driving to their place. And I'm going through this town called West and East iLesley. And I thought, that's very strange. That's weird. That's my name. And so therefore, this began this thing. And then as I delved into it again, the reason why we owned that land, I took my name. I found my name and it went right back to 840 something, right? So that was the soul. The soul was showing me, who you think you are, you're not. So here was the land where it all begun for me. So this person that's in my life, God forbid if I looked at her as a relationship or even as a woman, because it's gone way beyond that. And that's just the shorter version of, why do we meet people? What do you think? It's because you're lonely? Do you think it's because you want love? Oh, no. Oh, no. And I've actually taken it to a place where if I've got to take it to the place that if somebody kills somebody, that's not just because of coincidence. There's something there that's gone on with one soul family and another soul family, and them two have met up and returned the favor. Because the information that I have discovered, I've come from, when I was started doing all of this on, it was about God and it was about Jesus, the way that I was dressing, the things that I was into. It just didn't make sense. I was a hairdresser. I was into fashion and makeup. That's what I did. But then when my family lineage started to show itself to me, I come from a long line of preachers. And I come from a long line of scribes as well. And two of my family edited the Bible. So when I look at my work, I'm creating the Be Me Bible. And I had to ask myself, well, why am I creating the Be Me Bible? I'm not interested. I created a makeup range. I created the new looks for the winter and the summer and the autumn and things like that. So the more I was seeing these pictures of my families, I thought, my God, I know you. So anyone that's, where we sort of say we've had a past life, I've got to go beyond that, because I thought I was having a past life as well as, but no, for me, that past life was living in me. So, and then I also found out no matter what country I went to, no matter how much I tried to run away from this awakening and becoming the healer that I became, it only worked out that every area that I lived in, I found all the information of the addresses from all of these preachers and all of these amazing people, right up to royalty of where they lived. And you know what? I lived basically round the corner from each and every one. So what I thought was my journey, what I thought was a great idea, I think I'll go to Spain. Let's go to Spain. Why am I in Spain? No idea. I just think I'll go to Spain. Then I find out that we come from a lineage of order of preachers, of Dominion order of preachers, right? So am I there because I want to go to Spain? No. My soul's journey has taken me there because it's saying, this is where you come from. This is where this preacher ability has come from. And so therefore, all of the places, now I live just down the road from Stonehenge and Glastonbury and all these ancient sites. Why do I live there? I have no interest. I wanted to be in London where all the fashion was. But all of my preachers, they've been to these places. They have preached in these places. Even when one of the famous preachers was King Henry VIII's spiritual advisor. And my ancestor was the one that buried whoever King Henry VIII's wife was. He was the preacher that buried her, Antoinette, I think, or something like that. So now when I look at me, and I look at, I'm a spiritual director of Beamism. I've got this healing code. I bring a God code, a new level of consciousness. What it is, the awakening for me is not just me. I am the soul of souls, and all them souls that created whatever they created resides in me. So when I started to awaken, I tapped into the intelligence of that DNA. And in that DNA was a book. And as that book started to awaken, the information started to awaken. And of course, it started to flood out. But of course, I'm thinking it's coming from here, there, and everywhere. And of course, it's a two-way thing. When you're awakening, you will see a lot of spirit, and you wonder why you're seeing this spirit. And what I found out was they were reminding me. Now, it wasn't for me to become the psychic, the medium, the clairvoyant. They was just gifts that we have anyway. That was something that we all have. And they were showing me. But I thought it was coming from everywhere else. But what was going on, it was saying, we want you to remember who you were before you came here. So I'm now at that place that turns around and says, yeah, I know God. I know God personally. I could turn around and say, yeah, I know Jesus personally. I could say I know all of them personally. Why? Because I come from that energy in the first place. We come into this world. We have free will. We live our lives. We meet relationships. Some you like, some you don't like, some you get on with, some you don't get on with. And so therefore, what I've realized is now that each and every person that I've met, the code is there. So when I turn around and say this, the person that's in this household now, her name is Hughes. And when I was in Spain, I was living with a girl in Spain, and it just so happened her name was Hughes. And it was like, wow, how can that be possible? Here's the truth behind it. The originality of my name is Eilsly, not iLesley. So these two people with the surname of Hughes were letting me know that the originality of my name was Eilsly. In fact, Hildersley. And so therefore, each person does bring that message. And to be awakened is to recognize, what is this person really? Who is this person? Where have they been in my life? Because once you start to understand, even if I put a message out and I want a message back, I'll guarantee you it's coming out of the lips of this being. And that for me was what awakening was all about. Now, I can go back and find in my family, we started revolutions. So where am I now? I'm in the place of starting a revolution. One of my ancestors also broke in to the Vatican, I shouldn't even be saying this really, broke into the Vatican and stole a book that was under lock and key. And it's now in Oxford University, and it was all about spirituality, and no one was supposed to see it. One of my family members stole that book, and this is where Catholicism, I can't even say the word, that Catholicism sort of kind of originated from, not originated truly from, but started here in England. And it was my family that also started that. So when I look at myself, am I Trevor Eilsny? God, no. It goes way beyond who I am. Am I a man? Oh, no, for God's sake, no, I'm not a man at all. Am I a human being? No, there's no evidence of that I'm actually a human being. Because what I have discovered, it's blown my mind beyond beamism. It's blown my mind beyond psychic medium and clairvoyance. And I'll let someone else speak in a minute, because I can just run with this all day long. But when it comes to understanding and about healing, and you said about healing your tooth and things like that. Wow, God, I've taken healing beyond something that I just didn't even think was possible. And and we'll talk about that a little bit later, of the miracles that I've actually performed. And that's where I come in with the word of just naturalness. And I think that every being and every soul has this incredible healing gift that we call miracles, but I shall still turn around and say it's natural. And so therefore, in this awakening, the more I've discovered that I am the soul of all souls, and all of these souls are contained within me, to me, that's my library. And nobody teaches that, not even science. Even science is still telling us to a point, other than Greg Braden and people like Bruce Lipton, they're still turning around saying, no, only 2 strands of the DNA work, the rest is junk. Well, sorry, I'm afraid God did not put junk in me, and it didn't put junk in anyone else. And I think that's one of the biggest tricks, that if you cannot get into your own DNA, and that's where the intelligence begins, because intelligent consciousness, awakening body, mind, energy, which is I see beamy. So I don't see humans, I see beamies. I see the intelligence, I see the inner consciousness. And inside I see is an inner compass. And when we learn to understand that inner compass, it doesn't matter where I go. It doesn't matter where I try to escape. It doesn't matter if I'm meeting somebody by coincidence. There isn't no such thing. I'll leave that right there because let's see what you've got from there. But there is no coincidence, for good or for bad. Even if people have treated me really bad, oh my God, I love them. You know, I hated my wife for having an affair. And, you know, be honest with you, I wished her dead every day of my life. Her name was Denise. I couldn't even bear to hear the name Denise. You know, if anyone came near me with that name Denise, of course, it just brought up the emotions. Even if somebody was a Sagittarian, which she was, for, oh my God, please go away. I'm not interested. But now when I look at my wife and my ex-wife, you know, I love her so much, and I love her, and I still remind her, I said, you know, thank you so much for having that affair, because if you didn't have that affair, I would have never, ever have discovered the truth of who I am. So when we believe something is going really, really bad, and somebody's really upset you, or somebody's even tried to kill you or tried to maim you or whatever it is, oh my God, you got to thank them, because they was brought on that planet to do that. And the more injuries that I went through, I thought, yeah, let's bring it on. Because an injury to me is the healer's toolbox. And I can't speak from that healer's toolbox if I've never experienced what I'm talking about. So I only speak about what I know from my own healer's toolbox that says, can I heal that? Yeah, no problem. I can do that because I've done it many, many times. Do I understand what enlightenment is? Yeah, because I understood who I was to who I am now. Do I know what the kingdom of heaven within is? Yes, because I definitely know what the kingdom of hell is. And so therefore, do I know what the kingdom of God looks like? I say, oh, hell yeah, I'm bloody living on it. And every day I wake up and I see the kingdom of God before me, because if I don't recognize that this is the kingdom of God that got built for us to experience all of this. So I think the world has also set us up to say that the kingdom of God is way over there and you can't see it until you die. Well, no. I want to see it here because it is here now. And the more that we're creating havoc and destruction and killing people, don't worry, you're going to a better place, and it's called the kingdom of God. No. That also is the biggest trick in the book, that we are here actually destroying the kingdom of God. Tell me, where is there a better place than this in the entire galaxy? We haven't found one yet. We haven't. And so therefore, what is love for me? What is unconditional love? Oh my God, I fell in love with a blade of grass. I can fall in love with a dead hedgehog with its intestines hanging out. I fall in love with an autumn leaf. I fell in love with a worm. I fell in love with a sparrow. I fell in love with just about everything. And why shouldn't I? Because when we bring it back into the relationship, people have not fell in love with life because they're still looking for a personal love. But when the awakening happened to me and I fell in love with life, oh my God, it's a true saying that when divinity touches you and true divinity touches you, you cannot stop crying. And I cried for years because I was so ashamed of myself as being a human man, and I didn't recognize the beauty of this place, even down to a pebble. I'm not interested in a diamond. Give me a pebble off the beach and I will cherish that. And that's what we're here for. And that's what we're missing. And if we don't connect back to this land, then forevermore, there will be war and destruction and killing of what we call humans, or what I now call souls. So therefore, it's about connecting back into this land, every piece of dirt and soil. This is a miracle for me. I'll pick that up, I'll move that there, I'll put that back there. Do you know what? Miracle. That's a miracle in the making. Why is that a miracle? Well, because when I'm dead, I can't do that. But while I'm alive and I can do that, to me, that's a miracle. So when I look at the word of miracle, it's a miracle that I'm here. It's a miracle that I'm speaking to you. It's a miracle that I saw a beautiful hawk sitting on my washing line today, and it was looking at me, and I connected to it, and I fell in love with something more than I've ever fell in love with before. And you know what? That hawk knew it, and it just perched there for a good 20 minutes, and we just connected, and I just fell in love again. And that's what people are missing. So the more that we are broken, the more that we go into our internal self, it's a disguise so that you don't see the world that you're living in. And that, to me, is a real shame. So awakening the be me is just so that I can just see what a wonderful place. Because when I go into spirit and I say to God, where's the kingdom of God? He's going to say to me, or she, or it's going to say to me, you just left it. And that's what spirit was trying to tell me. This is it. This is where it is. Yes, there's a spirit world. I completely understand that spirit world. But do you know what? This is also the spirit world. I'm talking to spirits. I'm talking to souls. I've known you before. You've known me before. We just don't remember. But the reason why out of 8 billion people that you've connected to me, anyone that I've connected to, there is a reason. If not, I would connect with a lot more people. And if you only connect with, 20, 30, 40 acquaintances, how many do you really know? 5, 6, 7 maybe? They're the most important people in your life. Even if they want to cutthroat you and stab you in the back, you've got to say thank you very much, because that's the healer's toolbox, and I love it. And that's my reward. My reward was being stabbed in the back, because it gave me the opportunity to be able to heal that as well.
Wow, that's great. That's really interesting. The synchronicities that go off. And I noticed since my spiritual awakening, the synchronicities were just everywhere to the point where I couldn't deny it anymore. And but I sure appreciate the way you've laid that all out for us. And Lorilei, what would you like to add to that?
Well, that's hard to follow that up. I made a few notes. So you were asking about self-love, if I remember correctly, where we all started with that. I think it's a work in progress. I know for myself, I work on it every day. And I think that for myself and many people that I meet in this field, it's very good. It's very easy to give, but it's not good to receive. Like we forget about receiving. And I think that being on this planet, it's all about balance. And part of my message that I teach is that we need to embrace it all, because it makes you who you are in this moment. And as I've said many times before, all we have right is now. That word's already in the past, right? You get so many people worrying about the future, what's going to happen, what's going to happen, what's going to happen. But two proverbial questions. One, my partner Del had asked on a show. We had quite the discussion with 4 of us in an hour, was, if you could go back in your life and change anything, would you? And if so, what? And I believe that, I think all of us, except Del might have changed 1 or 2 things, I think, but there was 3 women that work in the same kind of field as ourselves. They said, no, I wouldn't change anything, myself included, because, you can look at whether you want to look at it as the butterfly effect or anything, but as soon as we change one thing, everything could change. I might not have the children I have. They're 2 very unique boys. I was told I'd never, ever, ever have children. So I say I didn't just win the lottery once, I won it twice. And my eldest, being part of the LGBTQ community, you've met him, Karen, part-time drag queen, adores the ground he walks on. My youngest has severe autism. And the reason I share that is, and I don't want to make, very, very aware of, people going through infertility, for example, or maybe IBB and adore animals, or, maybe choosing not to be a parent for whatever reason, and that's okay too. But we've all looked after somebody or something that relies on us. For example, Kitty there, or I've got my dog and my cat over here. So whether say you're a caretaker or a pet parent or a parent or whatever, I really believe that when, again, we get back to service to others rather than service to self, we start to understand unconditional love. And we start to understand that, you know, what forgiveness is, what many things are. Like my kids have been my biggest teachers, but my pets too. I adore animals as well, because I believe if you ever want to see what unconditional love is look at an animal. You know, there's a reason why dogs spelled backwards. They say, you know, is God, or it's not just dogs, it's any kind of animal, or seeing the beauty in nature. But my whole point is, it's a starting point, I think, for people when we try to look at self-love. Because I think what we have to convince ourselves, especially when we start this journey, is if we're able to do it for someone within our care or something in our care, we need to start turning that inwards. And I think with that being said, it starts really getting to know yourself. Who are you? Like you said, I think it was you, Karen, Trevor, you said quite a bit about this as well, but who are you? And if you don't know who you are, you know, it's an interesting thing to sit down and start journaling, asking yourself that question, not filtering it, just writing. Who am I? And whatever comes to mind, doesn't matter what it is, but take a good look at it. And if you've written I always say we have the worst inner voice, the way we speak to ourselves, then most of us would never say to another person to their face. And why is that? Right? Now we can get stuck in victimhood and going back to childhood. And, you know, I've often said, and I know Karen's heard me say this, is I don't think many of us in this field have had a Brady Bunch upbringing. Most of us have had a pretty difficult upbringing, it seems, that I've met on this path. And I think it's because, I think it was something you said in the beginning, Trevor, about it was preparing us. It was preparing us for what was coming in the future, I believe. It helps
Definitely.
helps us have empathy and compassion for those around us that we're mentoring or teaching or following. And I think once you experience something, you really get it. You really, really get it when someone is sharing it with you. But I think that it's unraveling what that inner voice is. Where is this coming from? And again, not getting stuck in the victimhood of it, because I think a lot of it we absorb as children from the age of 0 days to up to 7, right? And we can always say our parents tried to do the best job they could. Now, it may not have been the best job with some people, but it's unraveling some of those belief systems is what I'm talking about. Taking a look at maybe why do I feel or I think the way I do? And looking at it, is this something acceptable? Is this something I'm okay with? And I'm not saying with judgment, but maybe you want to change that. And I'm talking about people that are newly awakened, a place to start. I think the best place we can start, though, is celebrating the gifts that we have. I can't tell you, I don't know about the two of you, the amount of people I've met that when you ask them, what are you good at? No idea. Or, you know, trying to live in joy. I've been really using that message, especially after the last 2 years. And I always say you have to walk the walk of the talk that you do, myself included. And how many people have no idea what brings them joy? And so then the next question I'll ask them is, what did you used to dream about as a child? What did you want to be? What did you used to love to do? And what's stopping you from going back to that place? Because I think when we're in joy and we're in love, we start to discover a lot of things about ourselves and unraveling all that. I always say even pain is the body's voice, if you will, whether it's emotional pain, physical pain. It doesn't matter what it is. It's the body's voice saying, hey, this needs some attention here. And if you don't know how to heal it, doing some research, taking a look around, trying on a few different coats, if you will, because I believe every one of us is a healer. I really do. It just depends on where you're coming from. Again, where are your gifts? Where are your talents? Because none of us were put on this earth without a gift and a talent. I really believe that. It's just a matter of how we perceive it. And I also believe that gratitude is an incredible place of where to start with self-love. People say I have nothing to be grateful for. And then I've said to, people before is, did you wake up this morning? Well, obviously I'm here. Yes, you're here. Did you have a roof over your head? Did you have a place to sleep? Were you able to have breakfast? Maybe were you able to have a cup of coffee? Whatever it is, and starting with the little things, because I think the more and more that we practice gratitude, again, we use this term raising vibration. I know we haven't talked a lot about it here, but we hear it within our community. And I think it's so important. I think that's why we're finding each other, because of raising the vibrational energy. And that includes, staying in a place of joy, turning off the TV, turning off the radio, starting to surround yourself with people that are sort of on the same wavelength, if you will. Because I think when we do that, you tend to change your perspective, if you will. For example, there's a study out in Science that was done quite a few years back, that the 5 people that somebody spends the bulk of their day with, doesn't have to be family, doesn't have to be friends, it could be work, no matter what it is, we start to become a lot like them. So surrounding ourselves with people that are positive, maybe that whatever you feel drawn to, if we're working on this journey of self-love, again, looking at what needs healing. Again, a lot of people, you can go back to childhood because we absorb a lot, sort of figuring that out, healing the inner child, looking at shadow work. There's lots of different things. There's cord cutting. Grounding is really important. We're here for a reason. And again, I believe that we're meant to live in balance. I really do. So there's some beautiful things getting out in nature. There was this documentary that came out a few years ago, and it was like this amazing new technique called earthing. Earthing has been around for thousands of years. It's just like grounding. And for me, my higher, being is God, if you will, but other people have other beliefs, and I'm okay with that, whatever it may be. But where I'm getting at with this is, I think we were sent here with everything we need. We're not alone. I've often said, whether you believe in your angels and your guides, they believe in you, getting to know them, spending time in meditation. I call it my workspace. Anything you want to know, or you want to have a class on, Spirit will show up. They're here to help you make the best of the experience that you have here. And the other thing I'd like to remind people is, we're not here by accident. Trevor, it was you that talked about this quite a bit. And it's true. There's no coincidences. We aren't
No,
here by
it's not.
accident. We're here for a reason. So sitting down and trying to figure that all out. And if you're not sure, all you have to do is give your guides permission. They respect that we have free will. Let them know. You don't even have to speak it out loud. You can say it in your head. I want to get to know you better. I give you permission to get to know you better, my angels, my guides, and go on from there. It's a process. I believe it's a journey. And, I'm not perfect at it. I don't think anybody's perfect at it, but I think that's all in part of the lesson and where we're meant to be. Lastly, I want to add that I think it's all about the way we look at what's happened in life. I can honestly tell you that out of some of the most horrific experiences I've had in my lifetime, that with perspective and time, when I've looked back, again, Trevor, I'm going to build off what you said, saying thank you for it. Because when I look back on those times, it was like what was needing to be removed was removed out of the way to make the room for something better in my life. And the same thing that, say I have to be at an appointment and, I get every red light, or something happens and I'm late, or I don't get something that I really, really wanted. Maybe it was, a job or an opportunity. I look back on that and I say, thank you. Because when we look back, there was a reason why that happened. We may not be aware of why that happened, but I'll use the analogy. Say if I wasn't held up by 5 minutes, God forbid, I could have ended up maybe in a car accident. It could have been anything. But there's always a reason. And I like to look at it that way. And I think it comes with mindset. And regardless of whether we come from a half glass full or half glass empty type of mindset, nothing cannot be changed. Inner change has to come from within. Nobody can force you to change. But I think once we start to realize that we are capable of so much more than we ever thought was possible, exploring that, looking at that, getting up every morning, realizing it's a new opportunity. And what is there out to discover? What can I, even setting the goal of learning one new thing a day. I mean, there's so many things we can do, so much work to do in the way of, can we make this place a better planet? Absolutely. So when people say, what can I do? I'm only one person. There is a heck of a lot you can do. I'll leave it at that, Karen.
Wonderful. I want to apologize for my kitty. Every once in a while, she just wants me to get off the computer, and she just runs around clawing everything up around me and scratching the heck out of my green screen. So I try picking her up, and then she's a wiggly worm, and I just don't know what to do with her. I could put her out and shut the door, and then she'll scratch the heck out of the door, and it's really too cold to toss her outside. So I just want to apologize for that. She just wanted to be involved a little bit. I want to, what's really interesting that both of you have kind of touched on that I also want to touch on, and that is getting ourselves, and only we can do that for ourselves, but getting ourselves into that position where we can notice the beauty that's all around us. And I'll give you an example. Sometimes I struggle with my phone, and what I mean by that is, social media. I can get sucked. It's almost like it takes my consciousness and sucks it right into the device. And I don't realize that an hour's gone by or 2 hours has gone by. And it just was using up so much of my time that I had to say, no, I'm not doing this anymore. I'll allow myself, to check it in the morning. In the evening, I'll check it again, but there's no way I'm going to be spending hours and hours on my phone. And when I don't spend the time on my phone, I'm just using that as an example. It could be video games. It could be whatever our favorite distraction is. We don't realize. But what happens is when I put that down, I notice the birds, even in this cold weather, out in the snow, jumping from branch to branch in the tree out back. I notice the sparkle in the snow. Everyone's going, oh, damn snow. I can't wait till the snow's gone. And it's so beautiful. It is so incredibly beautiful. In the summertime, sometimes I just want to go for a little walk. I'll sit in the grass and I'll just look at a spot. And at first, all I see is grass. And pretty soon, maybe I see some ants, and they're doing a little job, and they're carrying little twigs and things, and they're all got purpose and order. And then I see another kind of bug, like a wood bug or something, cross this path. And, there's no conflict. There's no fighting. They just all got jobs to do. They're looking after their own business. And I would miss all of that if I didn't buy out those opportunities to look at those things. And the same thing even goes with people I get pissed off at. What about all their beautiful qualities? Instead of turning them into a caricature that suits my need perhaps to have a whipping boy or to be scapegoating, I'm missing all their beautiful, beautiful qualities. And that's one thing I've really noticed about this global love affair. Once we realize that the people that we're coming in contact with, and we don't even know who we're going to know one week to another, but it happens. And we realize their intentions are good. And we notice that they're doing their best. It's impossible not to love them. It's such a beautiful thing. I can't even explain how beautiful it is, to the point where I'll cry out of gratitude that I'm witnessing these incredible, beautiful things. And all of this is going on regardless of what the mainstream media is telling us, regardless of what our governments are doing. And one of the biggest lessons for me to learn, just being honest here, full disclosure, my guides or my higher self will often say to me, Karen, that's none of your business. So maybe I'm getting in a stew about something. Karen, that's not your business. Part of your job is to learn to mind your own business, because there are forces of good versus evil that are playing out right now. And the universe is so much bigger than just Karen. Who am I to think that I'm going to fix everything? No. And who am I to think that everything should go the way I think it should go? And that goes back to what you were saying, Trevor, right? And it goes back to what you were saying, Lorilei, how we have to take care of the things that we need to take care of. But really, I just find that the people that can put down the distractions and focus on, and what you're looking for is what you're going to find. You want to find horror, or you're looking for horror, there's no end to the horror you're going to find. If you're looking for heartache, there's no end to that. But if you're looking for beauty, there's also no end to this. And it doesn't matter where people live. All around the world, I have friends. Obviously online, but still I have friends. And those that love to appreciate, instead of going, oh, I can't sleep, they go, oh my goodness, look, the sun's coming up. The people that can do that are so inspirational, so loving to each other. And like I said, it's happening all around the world. And I just want to mention one other thing, because in Canada, recently we had this trucker convoy. And these are the working class people, the blue collar workers. And they got together, and for 3 weeks, they created a paradise within Ottawa. And Ottawa is probably one of the most evil places, not because of the land or the people that live there, but because of the government and the things that the government is trying to pull off, right? And they brought in absolute love and harmony. They were cooking for each other and feeding homeless people and helping each other out. They had the crime, as you know, Lorilei, went way down in the city while they were 90%. There. They cleaned up the streets. It was beautiful. And then what happened was the government lied to the population about what was happening and decided to send in many different branches of so-called law enforcement, but it was just absolute brutality. But what it did was it didn't bring down the good that had been done. It just really made it obvious where the wickedness is really lying. And I think truth is coming out, and truth is coming out. And so the big thing for me, again, getting back to, is me learning to mind my own business, me learning. And it's hard in the beginning. It's kind of funny. It went full circle for me. In the beginning, I didn't give a shit because I was ignorant. And then I learned about everything. And then I didn't give a shit because I realized it's not my business to give a shit, if that makes sense. I know that sounds real rough around the edges, but I'm just saying it how I experienced it. But now we have this global thing happening, and it's so amazing and it's so precious. And I'm really glad that the two of you could come on the show. I'm going to mention Ryder Lee, give him a shout out. His show is called Raised by Giants. He couldn't make it last minute, so he's not here with us, but he's definitely here with us in spirit. And he was going to weigh in a bit on a few of these things too. But since he's not here, I just wanted to mention him because he is on the thumbnail, and he's a beautiful person who's changed his life a lot and bringing a lot of peace and harmony to social media. And he's just a lovely brother. I call him brother. He's not actually related to me, but in my heart, he is absolutely. But our time is, believe it or not, quickly running out. I'm wondering if you each want to spend a few minutes, just what is your message to the world? What do you want people to know? You don't need a special membership either to get involved in any of this. It's grassroots. It's when you're ready and you want to come out, and there's 3 of us here in our own way that can help you in any way that you want. But what's your message to all the be-me's out there? I won't call them humanity at this point. So how about if we do that, and then also remind people at the end of your message again where they can find you on social media, and of course the links will be below. Trevor, what say you?
Well, I think I'll keep my message really simple. I think the world has tricked us that if you go back 2,000 years, there was only one man that was supposed to be able to heal. And there's only one man that's supposed to, you know, be in connection with divinity. I'm going to say that's completely wrong. And as for what is the problem, I can simply say, what is the problem with life? I can simply say, what is the problem with just about literally everything? And I'm going to turn around and say it's human. What is the solution? Because for me, it's a solution. It's all to do with the soul. And to me, everything is soul-led. Everything can be understood, but not from a human point of view. Because what's going on when you look at the way the world is that they're causing problems and trying to solve the same problem which they created in the first place, but by being human. And that trick's been going on for a long time. So for me to understand that the things that I went through, whether it's anything material, I had a crash course in it. I think all the healers had a crash course on trying to understand just about literally everything, whether it's being homeless. I mean, I was homeless for 12 years and which was a bit mad really, because I lived in a really lovely place and, I had all the trimmings of that. So to find myself homeless for 12 years was incredible. But what I did discover is that there's actually not that many people to help that'll help you. I remember once I was actually literally dying on the train station, literally dying because my appendicitis, I had appendicitis, it busted on the train station. And, Saturday night, packed, loads of people, and everyone just walked over me. And I was on the stairs, like sprawled out. Not one person asked me if I was all right. It wasn't until the train station cleared and the station master obviously looked in his camera and thought, there's someone laying on the stairs of the thing. And do you know what? Even in my sense of humour, he came down and he said the most stupid thing. He said to me, "Are you all right?" I said, "Yeah, I always lay on train station stairs. It's a pastime of mine." Even in my sense of humour, I was actually dying, that I could sort of find that notion. And that's what led me to be who I am, because I'm not here to walk over people. And even going through that dark night of the soul, call it depression, call it, I was in that place of wanting to commit suicide. I bought the rope, I put the hook in the ceiling. I was ready to do it. And then one day I thought I was going to do it. And I had to sit on my hands and 100% tell myself, do not move, because I thought I was going to execute it. I'd already had a brother that committed suicide. So I knew that was possible to be able to do that. He showed me the way to do that. But when that spirit sort of connects in and you truly are in a really, really bad place and you're fighting that battle of trying to stay sane, I went through all of this because I think it was my teachings. And even though I hated God for it, or I hated spirit for it, for putting me through such shit, of losing everything and, everything that I believed and truly loved at that particular time, there's something in me that sort of vowed to not do that for others. And even if they want to walk over me still, and people can still do that, I think for me, I understand what depression and suicidal thoughts and all that means. And there is another way through that. There is a different doorway. I've discovered that doorway. And so therefore, that's what I think my love is for the world. I thought it was in beauty. I thought it was about making a woman look fantastic on her wedding day, or making her feel great about herself. I mean, for what I know now, Jesus Christ, I've got to the point where I don't even understand why women wear makeup on their faces. So I did makeup for 30 years, but now, Jesus, I just don't understand where it is, because they're trying to make themselves, so they feel that it makes themselves look better. So I can take that right down to many, many different levels. So I think, again, for me, it's about being naturalness. You don't have to do all these things. You don't have to even make yourself up to be presentable or acceptable or to be loved by anyone, when in actual fact, when we really do find that naturalness, it just comes out of our pores. It's just something, it's so beautiful, because I think we're the only species on the planet that is not natural. I think every conceivable thing on this planet lives under universal law. And I think it is in tune with that language. And I think the humans overshot it. I don't think we're anywhere near it. So I think for me to be naturally in tune with that, more so than I used to be, to me, that was the true message for beauty. So my message to people is, what you think is impossible is very possible. The things that you think you can't do, I'm telling you that you can do. And, you know, in that place where I didn't think I'd ever get through, I did get through. And my work, or my soul, my spirit, my journey, my body, my mind, and my energy saved my life. And because it saved my life, I suppose that's what I do with people. And I get a lot of mail, and that's the most interesting thing. I used to cut people's hair, but now I get messages of people saying, "You've saved my life." So a life can be saved.
Mm-hmm. It sure can. Thank you, Trevor. Oh, and people can find you on your YouTube channel.
Yes, there is a YouTube channel. I've left it there for a little while now, but I will be coming back on that, because what was then is now changed. So I've evolved since even doing that channel now, of what I truly believe in now. So I'm hoping to sort of bring it back, but more on the soulful mission of it, and explain to people what I have discovered that's even more fascinating than what I thought I'd already discovered. So for people out there that believe they just want something to stop, don't try to do that, because we all want the dark night of the soul to stop. Well, of course, or they feel that they kind of want to get to a point where they want to stop, but there is no stopping. There's nothing here that stops. It just keeps going on. So, you know, Lorilei said it earlier on, you know, don't wait for something to sort of change or something to happen, because when you start evolving, it's a wheel that is rolling down the hill, and it's gaining momentum because it never stops. And I just keep getting amazed with whatever else is going to start to come out of me. And I think that's the most interesting thing. I think human is the block. And I think when you get rid of the human, doesn't matter what you call it, where you don't even have to call it be me. But I think when I got rid of that human, I think, wow, I just think that was it. That just when everything started to come out in a completely different way. So human is the problem. But I think for me, being me was my solution to that human problem, because I think the human language is completely wrong in my eyes now. So I never ever thought I'd be saying that in my entire life, but I'm here to do that. And I work on the books now to show that to people, that why do I believe that to be so? And that's what I'm working on. So I think when we stop being human, I think that's when we find our true self. And the more this goes on, this darkness, they know we're awakening, and they're going to do everything they possibly can to squash it.
Yep, I think you might be right about that. Thank you, Lorilei. And what are your final words of wisdom? And don't forget to also add where people can find you.
Excuse me. I think what I want to leave people with is just a few things. First of all, it's okay to have boundaries. So when I talk about service to others, it doesn't mean that you're a doormat. The other thing is, if you're not really sure, there's a few things that have served myself well, and I think other people, is if you're not really, really imagine what it might feel like to be treated or have something happen to yourself if you're considering maybe doing it to somebody else, or participating, or lack of action, standing up and saying, no, this isn't right. Because that's where I find a lot of this stuff starts to happen, is people are too afraid to stand up. But when there's more of us that stand up and say, no, this is wrong, and we unite, there's power in numbers. In that inner voice, A lot of us, like I say, it was worse to ourselves than we could ever be to anybody that face to face. If you have a hard time looking at yourself, maybe even go back to a picture of yourself as a child. Would you have talked to yourself or any child that way? No, well, that's still you. You're just in a bigger body, maybe an adult now. Really take a look at that, because you just start with little things, writing it down, leaving yourself messages, affirmations can always make a huge change. It's fake it till you make it, if you will. The brain will pick that up and start to reprogram the more and more we repeat those type of messages about being kind and loving to ourselves. Lastly, I want to say that if you've got nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all. You really don't need to. Like, I think you said that, Karen, not everything's our business. You don't need to jump into every dog fight. You got a problem with it, pick up a piece of paper, a notebook, write everything you want to say in it. And then if you want, rip it up, burn it, throw it out. It's over and done with. You've said what you needed to say. We don't need to jump into every fight. Because remember, the kinder we are to others, and it starts to, you're not living in that energy, if you will. So really, I'm talking about opening that door, discovering who you are, really who you are, celebrating who you are, and accepting it all. Because where you are today, all of it, the good, the bad, the ugly, the scars, the happiness, the joy, it's all made you who you are today, that amazing, incredible person you are. And thanks for having me, Karen. You can find me if you want to get a hold of me to book any readings, healing sessions, mentoring on facebook.com/Angel Rock. You can find my show, The Angel Rock, on Monday nights live, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Central Standard Time. It's live and it's on United Public Radio Network. You can find it on most social media and YouTube channels under UFO Paranormal Radio. And thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure, my pleasure. And I just
Karen,
want to, sorry?
I'd like to ask you now, what is your message that you would like to leave with the world? So let me put that question over to you.
Okay. Don't take this the wrong way, folks, but a lot of us never really grew up. We didn't have good role models. We don't live in a society that encourages us to grow up. But you think about if you have a pet or if you have a child and you love them so much, are you going to let them eat as much as they want? Are you going to let them lie around and do nothing? Are you going to let them chew it themselves? Oh, I'm talking about a pet now. But I mean, if you have a child, and your child wants this and your child wants that, are you going to give them everything they want every time they want it? No, that wouldn't work out very well. You got to make sure that they eat properly, that they get enough sleep, that their clothes are clean. And I really believe that part of the awakening process is to first of all form a kind of an honesty within, where we're observing who we are when nobody else maybe would even know, or no one else is watching. Who are we, the good, the bad, and the ugly? And then we need to parent ourselves. And so that's what message that I want to put out there, is to parent yourself. So it might mean you're going for a walk. Yeah, I know it's raining, but you got your gum boots and your brolly and you'll be fine. Get out there and do it anyway. It might be, okay, you got a little bit hooked in on social media this morning. Fine, I'm burying that damn phone in the other room under a pillow or turning it off, and I'm not going to turn it back on until 6 o'clock at night, or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's up to you. But we really, really need to develop kind of a parent that, and it takes time to grow and develop, that can help us on our way. And it's almost like that parent, at least for me, soon I realized that was my higher self. There's my higher self wanting to protect me and love me and want to give me a good life. Now, I'm not perfect, but this is the other thing that's one of these shifts that will happen within, is instead of having the critical voice telling you everything you did is wrong or could have been done differently, that goes away, and you end up with this loving parent kind of voice that says, hey, did you do your best? Well, then no one could ask more than that. You sure you did your best? Yep, I did my best. That's all I had. Well, good enough. Things like that. The voices in our head changes. I think what happens is we change the receiver wavelength within our brain. which is somehow the housing system for our whole spiritual connections. And so what I want to tell people is, unfortunately, a big part of love is self-regulation, self-soothing, all the things that make you a better person. And what happens is you shine on the inside, and then you can shine that onto the outside. And that's the final words of wisdom I have to say. All I'm speaking from is my own experience. This is what's worked for me and working for me. And automatically, you know, when I used to get involved with people who were, for lack of a better word, they lacked empathy. Well, as soon as I started to have conditions and boundaries, like what you said, Lorilei, I started to find that I just sort of cleaned out my closet. The people that made me feel bad about who I was, or that I was never good enough, I cut the ties fairly abruptly, but some I just kind of eased my way out of the situation.
And that's
what
okay.
Happened,
that's okay. Give yourself grace. Okay.
Thank you. And what happened was these beautiful people started to pour into my life. And so it's like there's no such thing as a void. When we get rid of something, it's like shutting a door or a window, and guess what? The back door opens, or the roof or the patio door opens. There's always something more beautiful going to come in. Why? Because we've learned our lesson. So that's what I think. And folks, like I said, you can find me on my website, www.karenholtonhealthcoach.com. I've got tons of free resources. Check out the free resources tab. I also have a YouTube channel and an Odyssey channel, Karen Holton TV.
Don't forget.
Yeah, you were going to say that. And I also have my own brand of orgone generators that I sell on my website. So if you want to help support my work, you can certainly visit my shop. That would be great. And that's about it for now. I want to thank you, Trevor and Lorilei, so much for coming on the show, and for sharing this time with the viewers, because I think that people are ready. They're ready to make some changes, and they're ready to make a switch. But I guess what it is we need to snap out of this mass psychosis that people are hypnotized into, because that's not the real. What we're talking about is the real. Some people would see it the other way around. Nay. What's real, the real is what we experience inside ourselves and what we are able to share with other people. So thank you so much for coming on today, and I really appreciate it, and I hope we can do some more collaborative work in the future, and I wish you all the best. And I really want to highly recommend both Trevor and Lorilei. If you want to reach out to somebody, I know they've both been there for me without fail. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.